there's media asset managers out there that help people find their stuff, but it's asset focused. There's storage companies that are focused on providing the storage that people need to work on. But there's not a lot of tools out there that really think about, put the project in the foreground. And that's what we do, and that's why we're different. We are a vendor of software products based out of Germany, and we make a post-production collaboration platform called Strawberry.
Now, what does post-production collaborative platform mean in English?
I'm so glad you said that, because it's a jargon basically, but essentially it's all about making post-production easier.
Okay, now wait.
Yep.
I have a note.
Okay.
On your website, it says that Projective transforms post-production workflows for content creators of all sizes everywhere and frees your team to focus on content and eliminates barriers on manual processes. It simply makes everything easier. Does that not apply to every tech tool you've ever heard? And what makes Projective unique?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I was going to say thanks for the sales pitch, the advertisement. So essentially, there's a lot of products out there that are focused on a very specific niche, niche problem and a niche solution. Very few take the approach of putting the set of tools that the editors need to work on their projects, right? There's media asset managers out there that help people find their stuff, but it's asset focused. There's storage companies that are focused on providing the storage that people need to work on. But there's not a lot of tools out there that really think about, put the project in the foreground. And that's what we do, and that's why we're different.
Okay, so how do I use Projective?
As an individual creator, I'm sure you're very rigorous and structured in how you organize your media and how you're working with the 66 projects you're working on.
I like to think so, but I don't think it's true in real life. I'm pretty scattered. Please continue.
Exactly, because you've got other things to think about, right? So the thing is, the creators, the editors, the journalists, they don't want to think about where they're putting their media. They just want to get on with the creative work. And so our project framework, Strawberry, automates a lot of that structure. So the workspaces get created automatically, and the editors can just focus on just editing.
Are you an editing tool? I'm having a hard time pinning you down in terms of what it is that you actually do. So do I edit in Strawberry, or do I access media in Strawberry, or do I use Strawberry for distribution, or is it for dessert?
So
what?
You edit in your creative tool of your choice. So
Okay.
It could be Premiere, could be After Effects, could be Media Composer, could be Final Cut, DaVinci, your choice, right?
Okay.
And also, it doesn't have to be video. It could also be Pro Tools. Could be graphics workflows, stills. They all can work with the same project framework. But basically, you work in that tool. But with Strawberry, what you can do is you have a central framework for organizing and structuring the project, so that you don't have to think about it. You just open a project and you work. For individual contributors, this is less of a problem. But as you get into a team where you have 2, 3, 5, 10 people working together, having those guardrails in place to just kind of keep things moving forward can be really beneficial. And these guardrails are kind of what we provide.
Okay, so let's put together a team of 5 people. Walk me through the workflow, the process of how do I use Strawberry? And specificity is a good thing.
All right. So let's imagine editor one has his rushes, right? He's got his camera card. He wants to upload them, right? So he can upload them into a project in Strawberry or a container.
Stored locally, stored in the cloud?
Stored typically in either a server on premise or in a cloud solution in the cloud. So either or, but it's typically in a shared network environment, right?
Okay.
And then editor 2, immediately there are proxies created so that people can either browse that content as well from a standard web browser. And then there's metadata that's extracted so people can find it automatically, right? Rather than having to worry about tagging and things like this. But most importantly, there's kind of a structure for the stuff that comes in. And now editor 2, he opens up his project in Strawberry. If he wants to work in Premiere, he can open that project with a Premiere template, and that will kickstart Premiere for him, and it will open that project with a preset workspace for that project. Editor just works as he normally does. He can also use our panel, for instance, in Premiere or After Effects, so he can actually browse inside of Premiere, select the material that he wants to use, drag it into his project, and off he goes.
So basically, you're providing a shell in which our media lives that we can then extract from that shell using a variety of search tools that you provide to be able to pull it into our project and edit it regardless of what NLE we use.
Exactly. And again, it can be any application of your choosing, right? So a lot of people, we work with a lot of creative agencies that also have like, Photoshop or Illustrator alongside the video applications. It's good to have all of those team members working in the same, in the same project framework. But again, we just basically take all of that guesswork, all of that difficulty of creating the workspaces, assigning the workspaces, creating the projects within the workspaces, setting the quotas on the workspaces. All of those things can be basically automated with Strawberry.
How hard is it to administer and set up the first time?
These things are almost never, they're always going into an existing workflow, right? So always a part of the process is to understand what the customers, how they work and what they do, and then kind of design and build what we do around it. Everything works out of the box, so actually the implementation is quite easy, but you want to do the legwork up front to understand like how best you can help the customer. Typically, it's a part of the process where we're working with them, understanding their workflows and understanding the broader landscape so that really they get the most value out of what we do.
I worry about privacy, I worry about security, so I've got a local server.
Yes.
I've got my hardware here with my
Yes.
server on it, and then on top of that I put a Strawberry layer. And the Strawberry then handles all the media management, media ingest, into which I dial into the Strawberry layer from my various NLEs to be able to access whatever I need.
Right.
But the editing process is not a Strawberry process, it's a whatever I like for my NLE process. I'm not using your tool to edit, I'm using your tool
Correct.
to supply the media for the edit.
Correct.
And the nice thing is, if I hear this correctly, is that now I've got all of my media stored in an organized fashion so I can go back into archives
Exactly.
and pull stuff back without
Exactly.
say, where did I put that show?
Exactly.
The show is already known because Strawberry
Exactly.
knows it. So the advantage is the more projects that I do and the more legacy assets that I have, Strawberry helps me track that down.
Absolutely. You got it. We're the foundation for that, to help you today, and then also moving forward, where you can have a searchable, real, active archive.
I think the challenge is, how do you find what you've got?
Yep.
And unless you have a rigorous approach, finding what you've got is easy while you've got it, but as soon as you put it aside, you can't find it again.
Yep.
And so where your strength really comes in is the more people contribute, the more it becomes possible to find the stuff you worked on.
Well, because it's containerized. It's that project, that containerized foundation that gives you the ability to always know where your stuff is, right? And it also gives you, like, one of the things to talk about when it comes to security, right? Do you want to control access to individual files? No. Do you want to control access to, like, a volume or a file system? Not really. You want to control access to projects, right? So if you put our layer in place, now this freelancer can access this project, and that freelancer can access this project, and you have absolute certainty that there's no data, being shared between the two, because you can control that. But if editors are working with their stuff all over the place and shotgunning their media all over the storage and putting this on this hard drive and that on that NAS, then you can't secure that, right? You can't secure something you don't know where it is. So that foundation really becomes important. So,
who is Projective optimized for? Who's the ideal customer?
Yep. So productions that are turning around a lot of projects, right? So, it can be as few as five editors, right? But you kind of have to have at least that number to have the pain that we really address. So like it's kind of in that like 10 to 30 is kind of the sweet spot, I would say, or on up. Like if I look at Sky, they've got 200 creative users like using this, right? If I look at Warner Media in Atlanta, that's 120 edit suites, right? Disney's got probably 200 editors across Europe spread into different environments. So these are really big stuff we're doing as well, but kind of like 10 to 20 is where it starts to really like provide value.
So where are you taking it? Where are we going? What's your hope?
So the interesting thing, you use the metaphor of the kind of on-premise server, right? About a year or two ago, we introduced Strawberry Skies, which is basically us spinning those servers and storage up in the cloud and hosting it all as a SaaS. What that enables us to do is also appeal to smaller productions that maybe don't have the technical, skill set or employees to manage this themselves. They can just run it in the cloud in a cloud system, right? So that, based on that framework, now our heritage is the on-premise. We have a cloud capability as well. What we're showing at the show this year is that we can connect them and unify this kind of cloud and on-premise in a really sensible way where projects can be moved between the two. As we move forward with that, what we're seeing is we're also adding more and more features on top to just try and provide simple bits of value, concrete, tangible value for our customers. So we're doing things like automated tagging and logging or transcription or speech to text, stuff like that. That's gonna be coming next.
For someone that hasn't heard of Projective and is considering it, what are the key benefits that you want them to know?
This project framework that we put in place for you, it will make every aspect of your post-production easier. It'll make ingest easier. It'll obviously make editing easier. It'll make the kind of back and forth and collaboration that you have with your teammates easier. It'll make archive easier, as you just articulated so beautifully. So every kind of aspect of that workflow just doesn't have to be so difficult. You don't have to have all these uploads and downloads and manual processes and waiting and emailing. You can really just kind of simplify things drastically by taking this framework and making that the core of what you do. And then based on that, all of this automation potential becomes possible.
Derek, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Really appreciate it.